Temporal here, and today we are covering a topic that many of you know, but this is the old, I need to heal better to carry as support. Regardless of how much I heal, the other team is winning. I can't out-heal the incoming damage. Well, you all know that is because the hero you play is called a support, not a healer. But let's get into it. Let's read the little blurb, set the table, and then we'll get into not just, yes, many of you know you should carry with support in other ways besides just healing, that you can make a bigger difference doing other things that most of their kids do quite a bit more than healing. And healing is sort of one of the easiest things, one of the first things that people reach to do. So making a difference between how much you're healing on your Lucio versus the opponent's Lucio, there's not going to be a ton of difference if you're both trying to heal as hard as you can. You just exist. Moira, Bap, you might be able to make a little bit of a difference. Anna, with how precise, how accurate you are, how much you manage your meter, but ultimately, it's not a terribly effective place to be competing with your other healers. Like, yes, as an Anna, a bad Anna is going to have to just heal her tanks. A better Anna can heal the Genji on the other side of the map, hit that shot, whatever. But ultimately, you're hitting some things where you're going from like 80% of the healing value you'd get on Anna to 90% or whatever. That's a 10% difference. Well, how much more value could you get by going, hey, I'm opening up a ton more elimination opportunities with anti-nades, or I'm shutting down a ton of ults with sleep darts, or I'm putting a little more pressure out there with your weapon. You're healing maybe 10% less than you maximum could be, 15% less than you maximum could be, but you're opening up 12 more elimination opportunities for your team per match. Well, obviously, as you all will find out, doing the latter is better. So, let's read the question and get into this. We see more impact on support. This person says, I'm in gold. Sometimes I find games where my team takes an overwhelming amount of damage and I'll pump as many heals as I can. Or where everyone is so spread out that I can't seem to turn the tides. Well, this is a problem. Your team being spread out shouldn't mean you can't turn the tides. In fact, if your team is spread out, the other team is also probably spread out. And if the other team isn't spread out and your team is spread out, that's great. We love situations where enemy team, red, is like, yes, here's our Reinhardt, here's our Lucio, here's our McCree, here's our Hanzo, whatever. And our team is like, yeah, over here's our Ashe, over here is our Zen, over here is our Pharah, over here is our Orisa, sure, and we get to do nice damage in multiple directions, and they don't like that. We love that. And if you can't find a way to make a difference when your team is spread out and the other team is clumped together, that means you're fixed in this, like, baby's first shooter early version of, we're supposed to group up and stand behind the Rein shield, stand behind the Orisa shield, when no, angles are king. We absolutely want angles. It's easier to get around a Reinhardt shield, to get around an Orisa shield, to run a diva out of DM if we can shoot them from multiple angles. And if you're struggling to support multiple angles, we'll stop playing Moira. Ooh, sorry, did that slip out? Well, what you should do is you should figure out, hey, can I hit my allies that are spread out? Or is there something more effective I could do? Like, hey, my Pharah's low health, her health bar is down like this, out of this, and I can't heal her as I'm over here on, I don't know, maybe want Anna over here. I can't heal her. There's too much stuff in the way. Can I find something else to do? Absolutely. I can go, hey, I'd like to heal her. I can't. I'll put a damage shot into that Hanzo. I'll put a nade right in here. That sort of thing. And those are things that you'd look to do. But hey, let's continue. You should definitely be able to find games where, your team spreading out is actually a good thing. In games where people position closer to me, I feel In games where people position closer to me, I can feel my impact affect the team fight. So again, are you playing Moira? Because Moira's really the only one who really is super interested in her people stacking. Lucio likes it a little bit. The Lucio can find things to do. He can help people set up faster. He can go mess with opponents that are spread out, knock down soldiers from high ground, lock balls in a room so they can't contribute to the fight, knock Reinhardt into his own Reinhardt. Like, he still has lots of things he can do if people spread out. But on lots of my losing games, I struggle to figure out what I could have done more. Any advice? Yes, lots of it. Disclaimer. I'm looking for less obvious mistakes. Like, if I get picked first, that's definitely my fault. I'm looking for win conditions I can initiate. Great. looking for win conditions you can initiate is 100% what you need to do. And based on reading this, I'm entirely too worried that you're trying to just hold the fight how it is until your team wins. Like, I'll just keep healing my team. I'll just hold them steady until my team figures out how to win. And that's not what you want to do. Like, yes, as a support, that's part of your job, as an Ana, a Bap, a Moira, holding the team fight as it is until your team can find an opening is part of your job, but you also want to exploit openings yourself. Oh, can you double tap an Echo? Can you double tap a Pharah and put them in lethal range, or even finish them off yourself with a third shot? Yeah, okay, do that. Create and exploit the opening, or create an opening. Single tap a Genji, and now maybe your Hanzo can get it. Whatever the case may be there. But let's take a look here. So, I don't need to see their responses. I'm instead going to go ahead and pull out our supports here, and we're going to talk about what they can each do to most effectively sort of take over games, carry games that isn't just heal botting. Because for most of the support cast, it's really not about heal botting for them to do it, because heal botting is really easy. And again, it's going to be that thing that is already being done. Here, I'm trying to find my entire support cast, and apparently I'm struggling. We're still missing someone. Who are we missing? Who are we missing? Oh, where's Moira? There we go, Moira. Okay, and we'll zoom in here. So, we look at this, we look at our support cast, we can do flex supports, we can zone them out like this, and we can do main supports. Good, we've got everyone. And here's how it works. Again, healing is something that most people are intuitively going to try to max out the meter on. They're going to try to get 100% of the healing value. They're going to try to push from 90% of the healing value to 95% of the healing value. Yes, I'm a better Ana. Yes, I'm a better Mercy. Yes, I'm a better Bap, whereas that's really not the best way to climb. You do need to get better at hitting your shots. You do need to be able to heal more effectively when that's what's called for, but you can prevent a lot of need to healing from pre-pressuring that Pharah, from pre-pressuring that Genji. Oh, if you pre-pressured that Genji, you actually get to heal more because the Genji never comes over and bothers you as Bat because he's already low health, so you're allowed to continue healing your team. You don't have to turn away. You're also allowed to continue damaging the other team. Much the same thing for these other heroes here. So that would be one thing that we're thinking of. The other thing that we're thinking of is, especially in lower ranks, bronze, silver, even gold, you're going to find your DPS players really struggle to be consistent. They're really, really going to struggle to be consistent. It's kind of why a lot of players will get into this belief that, oh, the supports and the tanks are better than the DPS players in lower ranks. Really what's going on there is tanks tend to be designed in a way where their damage is pretty consistent. It kind of just works, but it struggles to be lethal. And supports are designed quite the same way. Ana's healing hitbox is pretty generous. Bap's healing hitbox is a nice explosion of his thing. Moira gets to fire hose stuff, though yes, she has auto lock too, but she's the type of support character where she gets to fire hose. Lucio heals with an aura. Brig has, some degree of auto targeting to her packs. It's not hard to... Zen has some degree of auto lock with his Harmony Orb. It's not hard to deliver healing in this game, just like it's mostly not terribly hard to hit with much of a tank kit. And that's fine. That's not some tanks and supports are bad. That's not at all the argument that I'm making. But compare that to someone like Soldier, Tracer, even Hanzo, and I know that's going to be blasphemy to some of you. Like, landing the consistency of those shots that you need to find eliminations can be challenging. Now, it's especially challenging in those lower ranks when tanks aren't holding things weak for you. You don't have a Winston zapping targets from above, holding them low health for 3 seconds. The supports never heal. The Tracer that, went down a flank and was perfectly healable, was standing still, but is just invisible to the Ana, the Mercy, whatever the case may be. So there's some level of that feeding into each other. But the point that I'm really getting to here is, especially in those lower ranks, DPS are going to struggle to consistently deliver their damage. It's hard to aim. No one at those ranks is doing a terribly good job of aiming. So any offensive pressure you can put out is sort of at a premium because your team is lower on it than it would be at higher ranks. And then once you get to higher ranks, what you run into is creating any opening is a magic and your DPS will instantly pounce on it and it's great and that's fantastic. But, you have to create those openings because, hey, the other team is trying to create those openings too. So, offensive value is sort of always at a premium. But let's start with these lower ranks here. Either way, whether you're at the top, whether you're at the bottom, finding some offensive value out of your support kit is going to be sort of for the average person, easiest way to improve, because you're probably getting like 20% of the value out of offensive stuff you could be. Well, you're probably getting like 80% of the healing value out of your kit that you could be. So bumping this up to 50% versus bumping this up to 90%, this is a way bigger swing. It really is. For the amount of work that each would take. So how do you carry with Ana? How do you get more done? How do you win with Ana? Well, with her, the first and easiest step, if we're starting from the bottom, for the average Ana player, everyone's going to be a bit different. Everyone's going to have implemented this a bit differently. Is probably going to be getting offensive nades in there. Offensive nades are how Ana opens up elimination opportunities. That's her easiest way to open up elimination opportunities. Instead of just going, hey, I'm going to heal people until they're weak, then I'm going to nade them, then I'm going to keep healing them, try to make those nades be offensive nades. Specifically, try to get those nades on the opponents when the opponents are fighting your team. So early in the team fight, if you can, but not so early that your team isn't on top of them, because again, at those lower ranks, your tanks are frequently your reliable damage. So you really want to hit that offensive nade when your tank is fighting, say, the other tanks, and then you hit a nade, and that's fantastic. So that's like the first difference maker that you start to run into with Ana. Then other difference makers that you'll run into that you'll start to want to level up there would be, hey, you do want to get those good timed nanos, that timing that I just talked about for the nade where, hey, it's after the two teams have met. You can even wait a few seconds to try to see some abilities come out. The nano timing's a little bit early. It's like right as those tank lines meet. That's a good way to just sort of power up nanos like that. You'll, of course, as you get better, learn how to combo it with, hey, we're going to combo this with the Reaper that's in their face. We're going to combo this with the Genji. Those are stronger. Those are even better. Or we're going to save our Hanzo that got jumped by a Winston, and instead of him going down, he's going to eliminate the Winston. There's great things that you can do, but the first place you look for when upgrading your Ana value is going to be offensive nades in most situations. Then you're going to look to, hey, my offensive nades are pretty good. What else can I get? Well, let's go ahead and get these nanos right as sort of an initiational there, right as the tank lines meet. That's going to have quite a bit of oomph, of power to it. Then from there, for most players, I'd move into, hey, let's get some offensive shots done. You'd prefer not to put those on tanks. You'd prefer to put those on supports. You'd prefer to put those on other DPS. If you put them on DPS, it'll limit the other team's contribution. And that's actually really cool, because if you put an offensive shot on the opposing soldier, and that makes the soldier take cover, or that makes the soldier drop his healing field sooner than he'd like to before he's in a great position, that limits the amount of incoming damage, which makes you heal less, which actually allows you to take more offensive shots, which further limits the incoming damage. And that has a nice, worm eating its own tail effect where it continues and spirals on itself there. And hey, good offensive shots lead to more good offensive shots, lead to, I don't need to hit as many healing shots. Whereas if you're just healing, you're sort of constantly falling behind and you're slowing down how quickly your team gets eliminated, but all you're doing is slowing it down. You're not able to actually get ahead of it the same way you would if you put that offensive shot onto that Pharah, and therefore she went down and didn't bombard your team for a bit. Or you put that shot on the Genji, which stopped the Genji coming to your half of the map, bothering you, and then stopping you from being able to heal your Reinhardt, and then caused your Reinhardt to get swung out a ton and fall behind 200, 300 health compared to the other Reinhardt. So offensive shots, kind of the third place you go. Big difference maker. Look to weave those in on the DPS and the supports more so than the tanks. Though if the tank is all you can reach, by all means, put an offensive shot into the tank. It's worth it. That's going to be enough on Ana. I don't want to go too deep on any of these. So next, let's move on to Moira, because she's a tough one. You'd look at her and go, what do we do? How do we get better at Moira? Well, when it comes to Moira, you might be looking at her going, she doesn't have utility, Tempora. Like, that's her design flaw. She doesn't have utility. She's sort of this silly design. If she can protect herself from flankers, she doesn't really have to aim. She heals. She doesn't have any sort of cleanse. Her orbs don't, make her opponents, get slowed or make her allies shoot faster or give them damage reduction or anything like that. She's utilityless. What can you do? Well, Yeah, she kind of is utility-less. So if you remember how we started with Anna on those nades, hitting those nades, and then we moved on to Nano, well, she actually has to start with her ult. And she's looking for, that coalescence. That's looking to be her difference maker. And with Moira, you're really looking with that difference maker to go, I want a coalescence. And remember, people are struggling to get eliminations, especially in those lower ranks. They're struggling to get offensive value. Your DPS are, your tanks probably are, because maybe your Reinhardt is shield botting. So what do? Well, you're looking to get the offensive value out of your coalescence. You're really looking to go, hey, once the fight has started, I'm not trying to go, hey, let me coalescence from 50 meters away when my tank line hasn't even met. I'm looking to, once the fight has started, I want to use a coalescence on a squishy, so a 200 HP hero, that is about 2 seconds from cover. That's what you want to do. And you can get fancy and go, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm with my team here, Moira, I've got my Reinhardt here. My Reinhardt is maybe fighting their Diva, whatever, the tank lines have met. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fade to change my angle, throw a damage orb from here, and then activate coalescence, and boom. And I'm going to melt some squishy that is going to be at least 2 seconds from cover. And you don't really need the full 2 seconds. You can do it with a little less, especially if you get the damage orb in there. You can go for things, but what you're really looking to do is go, I want to be able to create an elimination because I can do it all on my own, as long as my opponents have messed up their positioning. And your opponents will mess up their positioning for you. They will. It's pretty great. They might stop doing this by GM, but you shouldn't be playing Moira in GM. To be perfectly honest, outside specific team comps. Yes, I know it's doable. Yes, people like Tesla have done it. I'm aware. Okay, so that's what you're really looking for with her. That is the big difference maker with Moira. I'm serious. The big difference maker with Moira for do you want to make impacts on the game is winning a couple extra team fights by getting a couple coalescence eliminations at the beginning, early phases of team fights. That's how you make differences with Moira. That is the secret. That is it, sort of. Are there other ways that you get better at Moira? You manage her resources better? You put more pressure on other people? There absolutely are. There's things you can do to get better at Moira, but that is her biggest way to climb more. Her secondary thing, and this is going to be much, much smaller, when you're looking at things that aren't healing better with her, and you can get into healing better with her. It's managing resources. It's about not over-healing people when they're not actually in combat, making a little better use of her hot, weaving between her hot and her damage when your tanks aren't in high-pressure situation, to have her never actually run low on resources. There's stuff like that, and then having the fire hose to just spam heals when they're taking heavy damage. Those absolutely matter. But this is the primary way you're looking to use coalescence. There's another way. The second thing you look to go, hey, how do I make a difference on Moira with some of the more offensive stuff, or with some of this stuff that maybe isn't just heal botting, isn't just resource management, and it's going to be to mess with lone DPS. Obviously, everyone understands, Moira can bother, especially at low ranks, a Genji or a Tracer that comes to pick on the backline. That's probably why someone swapped to Moira in the first place, because at low ranks that works. At higher ranks, the Tracer laughs and still eliminates them. But hey, at low ranks that works. And, that's fine, that's cool, that does what it's supposed to, but you can actually bother more than just flankers that come. You can get a little more aggressive because Moira doesn't position as far in her own backline. She's perfectly happy to go, hey, my Ryan's right here. I don't need to be back here where a Zen or a Bap would be. I can actually hide a little more up here if I've got cover and do a little bit of, I'm damaging you here, I'm healing you here. I tuck back a little to not take damage. I scoot back in a little, I do damage, whatever. Because she's positioning a little more aggressive like this, she can more aggressively put pressure on some of those flankers that would come through. But she's also got the ability, let's put her back here for a moment, to go, hey, there's an off-angling Cassidy over here. There's an off-angling Hanzo over here. Whatever. Unsupported DPS on off-angles, her damage orb, that is as close as she gets to utility. You throw a damage orb at an unsupported off-angling DPS, and they don't like it. Is it going to eliminate them? Of course not. But Hanzo's a lot less happy to hold his off angle at 100 health or 120 health, because now he can get body shot. People don't really have to, do a ton to him. He's now playing with less. He wants to play tighter on his cover. He probably wants to wander his way back. Probably want to wander their way back. Is that going to work on a Sigma? Is that going to work on a Diva? Is that going to work on a Roadhog? No. But on some of these squishier DPS that would still like to take their off angles, Cassidy, Hanzo, to a degree Doomfist, though he generally won't stay there terribly long. It can do a good job of making them go back to the team, slowing down the fight much more than trying to out-heal their damage would have done. So that would be the second thing, less impact than just getting eliminations with Coalescence, but that's sort of the second offensive thing that she's looking to do to be a difference maker in how we get through these fights. Okay. So that works. Let's go ahead and move on to another hero here. We'll move on to Lucio. That's a good one because we just covered 2 flex supports here. Lucio's pretty easy one. We look at Lucio. Lucio, you're obviously not going to make a big difference in your healing. You can make your amp timings better. You can understand better, hey, they got a little bit ahead of us. Let me use amp healing to get back into it, things like that. You can use speed to get to someone else to heal them, that sort of thing. But there's not a ton of extra room to be better than the next Lucio at healing. There just isn't. You exist. You exist harder than the opposing Lucio. So to out-support your mirror supports, you have to find value. Well, some of that is going to be tied to, again, if you can do damage, that's always helpful. And Lucio can put out damage. He's got ranged poke. He's got the ability to assassinate people. Assassinating people is very hard for most beginner players, so it's not where you'd look for. Where you'd look for is, can you just get some extra spam, some extra poke damage? Can you look at that wall? Can you go, hey, there's a choke, whatever. The opponents are, it's a bad example. There's a choke. The opponents are likely to come around the choke like this. You're over here is Lucio. You fire your burst and it goes, and then they walk around it. And hopefully they get hit by 4 headshots as they're walking around it like that, because you're spamming and dragging. You're dragging the correct distance that they move. You get a little practice at that, and it's not going to fully eliminate them, but it's going to do 2 things for you. It's going to get your ult, which is a fantastic ult. Based on its raw power, it's a top 5 ult in the game. I probably wouldn't rate it that because of what it takes to get. The total value of the ult comes down because it takes so much effort to get it. But from its actual value, once you have it, it is a fantastic ult. Getting more of those in a game is pretty darn good. But the other thing it's going to do is, again, you're going to create more opportunities for your Junkrat that's just spamming in nades there, your Reinhardt that sent in a fire strike, your Hanzo who's just sending logs in there hoping something will hit them. Some extra of those will convert to an elimination. You'll build a bit more ult charge, so you'll get a few more ults, and you'll open up some opportunities for people to get eliminations there. So that's a way that we get offensive value out of Lucio. What's another thing that we can do to get offensive value out of Lucio that isn't healing? Well, he's got wall riding and boops. So what do we do with those? Well, you have to just go get good at using those things. It's great to sit there and heal people, heal 3 people. Hey, that's great. But it's even better. Remember that off-angling Hanzo, that off-angling Cassidy, that off-angling Soldier, that as Moira, we could have tried to out-heal, but that's stupid. So we sent a damage orb at them to make them play more conservative, hopefully make them leave. Well, Lucio has very similar tools. He can wall ride his way up and go knock a soldier off high ground. And now that soldier might be boned. He might just be in a bad spot and get destroyed by your team. But even if he's not, he's going to sprint away, and hey, he's pretty happy. Very similar thing with a Hanzo. You can try it with Cassidy's as well. Obviously, Hanzo's Cassidy's potentially have the ability to flash you or to one-shot you, but you're still generally going to take that chance. Even if a Cassidy flashes a Lucio, they've still got to earn that follow-up shot because you were on the wall, you had momentum. It's not the greatest thing in the world for them. So generally, you'll still go mess with them. Knock those people that are off-angling on high grounds off. Oh, that's too hard. That's too scary. Your wall riding isn't up to par yet? Well, I guess you've got some improvement to do, because that's a way that you show differentiation between your value as a support and the other team's value as a support. It wasn't just about existing. What's another way that's a little easier? Well, you can go, hey, there's a Reinhardt here. There's a Reinhardt here. And guess what? Reinhardts generally battle around chokes. So there's probably a choke that looks, I don't know, maybe a little something like this, that the Reinhardts are battling around. Well, what can you do? Well, you as Lucio can ride this corner, can ride with some height on this corner, and now you have control. You can boop their Reinhardt out, if your Reinhardt is losing the battle, if he goes down to like 200 HP or something, or if the other Reinhardt goes down to like 200 HP, you can, because you're just riding back and forth on this corner, but with some height, as well as shooting down on him, you can boop their Reinhardt in. And what was a, hey, their Reinhardt's pressured, but he's now correctly going to put his shield up and, press S, play tighter to his corner and get healed and he'll be fine. Oops, he just got booped into your team. It's easier for your Reinhardt to hit another shot. And maybe you're off-angling McCree over here, goes, oh, I didn't have the ability to hit you through the shield, but you got knocked forward a little. Now your shield is like this, and now I can shoot you in the side. So like, oh, those are difference makers. You're potentially creating a couple more elimination opportunities for your team over the course of the match, or you're reducing what would have been some of your team falling apart. And your little, ooh, my health per second in the teens is going to keep my Reinhardt up. No, your health per second in the teens was not going to keep your Reinhardt up, but booping out their Reinhardt when he came forward swinging, when your Reinhardt was in trouble, is potentially going to keep him up. So those are the sorts of things that you start looking at with Lucio. You start using his boops and his wall riding to make a difference there. Okay, so what else can we look at here? BAP, it's weaving, guys. It's weaving. BAP exists. Weaving is the big, deep, dark secret about Baptiste. And what do you know? That's a bunch of offensive contribution. It costs you basically nothing. If you go left click, which is his damage burst, and then right click, it costs you absolutely nothing. If you go double left click, then right click, it's really not costing you anything. When you get into triple, you actually start to delay your next right click a little bit. It's still worth it in some situations. And obviously, if everyone's at full health, you can just keep mashing on that left click button. But BAP, very easy. Get above and behind your team if that positioning makes sense, if that positioning is available. Do damage, right click to heal, generally your tanks, and then left click. And ideally, you'd put the left click on their Zen, on their Hanzo, whatever. But that might require you to move your crosshair pretty far. Like if your Reinhardt's here, your back here is BAP, their Winston is right here fighting your Reinhardt, their Cassidy is over here. Yes, you might want to put damage into their Cassidy. Wouldn't that be great? But it's totally fine if you just put damage into their Winston bubble, into their Reinhardt, into their Diva, because that way you don't have to move your crosshair. As you get better, will you flick between your right clicks and left clicks? Yes, but as a lower level player, basically anything lower than high GM, you're going to end up with situations where it's sometimes going to make sense to just double or triple tap the Winston, then heal your Reinhardt again, because then you're not spending any time moving your crosshair. Should moving your crosshair take time? No. Does it actually? Yes, of course it actually does. There's actually some aim calibrating that happens to move from the Reinhardt that you're right clicking on to the Cassidy that's over there, that sort of thing. But that pressure differential is huge, and it is why Anna hates BAP. It's not the lamp that makes Anna hate BAP. Anna hates BAP because they put out similar healing numbers, but then BAP just puts out way more total pressure in this frontline battle between the two tanks, because they're also putting a bunch of damage pressure on the shield or damage pressure on the character while delivering basically as much healing. It's stupid, it's broken. I know I have some Anna stans in the chat who will be happy to hear me say that, but that's what you're looking at, and that is how you make the difference on BAP. Like, that is it. That is how you make the offensive difference with BAP, and that is what wins you more games in BAP. Most, gold plat BAPs are not 2-to-1 weaving. If you're 2-to-1 weaving, like consistently 2-to-1 weaving, double damage, single right click, you're gonna win games as BAP. You are going to win games as BAP. That is where you find the value that most of the BAPs are leaving on the table. It's not about, oh, I need to hit more directs with my right click so I get the 70 heal rather than the 50 heal. That's not what's going on. Or, oh, I need to be able to hit double jumping Genjis, or I need to hit my Echo in the air. No, you don't. Like, sure, it's great if you can, and the best BAPs can, but what you're looking for is get that easy on the table damage out of your BAP there first. The other way that you really make a difference with BAP offensively is you just get greedy with your windows. You literally just drop a personal window for yourself and eliminate a DPS that's even a second out of position. Windows get most of their value in the first 1 to 2 seconds, and being able to count on yourself to hit your first 2 shots after you drop a window means you can just eliminate squishies. That's what it means. And literally just go like, oh, there's an Echo right there. I'm going to drop the window and delete it. There's a Soldier right there. I'm going to drop the window and delete it. There's a, Reaper without Wraith. I'm going to drop the window and delete it. That just wins fights. That just wins fights. There's obviously other good team ways to use windows, things like that, but that is sort of the second thing that you move on to how do I take over a game in a non-healing way as BAP there, beyond get your weaving down. And getting your weaving down is by far the biggest thing. Okay. So, who else should we move on to here? We've got 2 main supports left, 1 flex support left. Let's go ahead and move on to Mercy. So, how do you make the difference with Mercy? So the first piece is, again, just like we went to the second piece of advice for Anna was get your ult timing right. The first piece of advice from Moira was use your ult well. The second piece of advice for BAP was have good enough aim and then just be willing to use your window well to just delete opponents. Lucio, part of the first piece of advice was, hey, get more ults. Well, using your ult well is good on Mercy. Do not get stuck holding your ult. Your ult is sort of the biggest, easiest way to show differentiation on Mercy. You really want to hit that ult timing. I don't want you holding onto your ult for 3-4 team fights to try to find the perfect timing, but what you want to do is you want to get that Valk used really early in the fight. Not when the opponents are still 10 seconds away from you, not when, hey, they're 2 seconds away and they could engage and then they change their mind and they don't engage, but like just before they've engaged, when there's pressure on them to engage, you want that Valk to come out, and you want to do this early because if you Valk early, you get to blue beam. And if you get to blue beam, that is way, way better. If you look at Mercy's healing with Valk, 60 health per second, even if you're getting 5 teammates, that's nothing compared to Transcendence. Yes, Valk lasts longer than Transcendence, but it's nothing compared to Transcendence. What you want is that blue beam, because it's just like what we were talking about earlier, where, hey, if you put damage on that Genji, you put damage on that Soldier, you put damage on that Hanzo, they do less damage. You put damage on that Fair, they do less damage, and you're not stuck in this, let me try to slow it down, try to slow down the speed at which we're losing by, healing to almost keep up with damage, but not actually keep up with damage. If you can put more offensive damage into the opponents, they will start running for cover. They will start playing defensively. They will start using their defensive cooldowns. That will reduce the incoming damage on your team, which ironically lets you blue beam harder. So you're really looking for opportunities to go, I want my Valks to look like 3/4 blue beam. I want my Valks to start with the first half of my Valk timer. Your Valk timer is ticking down like this. Let me use a different color. Your Valk timer is ticking down like this, and I want your Valks to look something like this, where it's like blue, okay, tiny bit of yellow to get some people out of a true danger threshold, more blue, okay, little bit of yellow, okay, let's go pretty heavy blue. I want as much of this first half of your Valk to be blue beam as possible. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm really looking for out of your Valks. That's how you make a difference on Mercy. That really is how you make a difference on Mercy. It is the big thing, especially for those low SRs there. So then you're not trying to heal bot with your Valks. You're trying to use your Valks early enough that you can afford to blue beam, which reduces the incoming damage. And also, if you do it right, that leaves your team somewhat low health when your Valk ends, and then you heal them up and you get 20, 30, 40% of the way to your next Valk. But hey, that's a tangent. The next thing that you run into with Mercy, and this is going to be a smaller difference maker than Valk in the low ranks, is you got to get that, it's still about that blue beam. It's about that offensive contribution. And this goes up into higher ranks too. Don't get me wrong, good Valk timing, good blue beam use, those help as well in higher ranks. But what you're looking for is your second piece to sort of improve from that carry thing. Maybe you've already got the Valks down. And this is not like every single player is struggling with exactly these things. I'm talking in broad strokes about the latter here. So you gotta keep that in mind. When it comes to Mercy, it really is going to be use that blue beam well. And that could be, hey, my Winston's jumping in. I'm going to blue beam him because he's about to get landing damage. He's going to be cleaving 3 people. That's good. That can be, I recognize that my Hanzo has a strong off angle there, and that's something that I want to use, which is fantastic. That can be, hey, I see storm arrows coming up because I'm tracking cooldown timers. I'm going to hit that. Then I'm done with my Hanzo because he's not hitting a lot of shots, and I just wanted to boost his storm arrow because it's a power spike. So at that point, I'll move back to enabling my Echo because stickies are coming up. Or, she just went vertical and I expect she's about to use stickies. Or I'll go back to boosting my Zen because I can see they've been charging a right click for a second. Or, hey, I came back and boosted Hanzo, whose positioning is kind of terrible, but he can see the other team. Now I'm going to go back to boosting my soldier, who doesn't have the burst power that Hanzo does, but is in a more aggressive position than Hanzo. So sort of starting to track those cooldowns that your teammates have, as well as seeing the positioning and recognizing which positioning is aggressive and is going to be able to do more work. One second. And again, this is not to say that there are not other things you can do better to get better at these heroes. Yes, you can get better at Mercy by surviving more. Yes, you can get better at Mercy by having better judgment around reses. Yes, you can get better at Lucio by ult tracking and recognizing what's going to be a problem for your team in the next fight and intentionally keeping that person, keeping their uptime low in a fight with boops and harassment and things like that. You can get better at, these heroes by doing other things. Don't get me wrong, but we're talking about the offensive capabilities because those are generally what help you more effectively take over some of these games, especially for the lower level types of players that might be thinking, oh, I need to heal more. Oh, supporting healing is the key to the game. Okay. So then we move on to, who do you guys want next? Do you want Zen? Do you want Brig? I guess we'll do Zen next. Zen isn't that confusing. Most people don't get stuck heal botting with Zen because, Zen is, Harmony Orb doesn't heal a ton. You don't go, oh, I need to Harmony Orb harder to carry with Zen. No. In fact, I'd say people make the opposite problem with Zen. Zen is sort of an inversion of the whole video because most people are looking at Zen and going, yeah, I need to left click harder, I need to frag harder, whatever. Where it's like, don't get me wrong, fragging harder is great. Being able to, fight better, duel better, to deal with that Tracer that showed up, to deal with that Sombra that showed up, getting the frag and out sniping the Hanzo, the Widow. Those things are fantastic. With Zen, you actually need to lean a little bit more into your support functions and get a little bit more on the page for, wait a second, before I start going into the right clicks, for example, I really want to make sure that my Harmony Orb and my Discord Orb are out, that they're providing value. I don't want to constantly be moving my Discord Orb. I don't want to forget about my Harmony Orb. Will I bring my Discord Orb back to protect me? Absolutely. If my Discord Orb was on a Reinhardt that my whole team was shooting at, that was fantastic, that was getting value, but a Tracer shows up on me, yes, I'll move my Discord Orb and fight them. But barring that, I'm not going to move my Discord Orb from the Reinhardt that I've got 3 or 4 people shooting at to put it on, say, the Soldier that I'd kind of like to shoot at right now that I have a sightline on but my team doesn't because I want my Discord to keep getting value. Or tunneling, hey, I really want to, do this, fight this thing, like, where's your Harmony Orb? You're burning that D.Va, and that's great. The D.Va's not really a threat to you. You've got plenty of time to put your Harmony Orb on your Tracer, your Wrecking Ball, whatever, and you're not. So he sort of inverts this whole thing because most people aren't trying to heal bot with Zen. Instead, the big thing that most players are going to need to do with Zen is be a better support, and that does not just mean Harmony Orb. That means Harmony Orb and Discord Orb. Get those two things out there. Make sure that you're not going into right click after right click after right click in the middle of battles without your orbs being out there getting value. The other thing I'd say is don't just fall into right click after right click after right click. Do your left clicks when people aren't paying attention to you. Like, you can open with a right click. You can try to get a pick off. You can, much like Lucio we talked about, would be spamming his left clicks at a choke. Zen can be spamming right clicks at a choke. That's fine. But once the fight is actually going on, if people aren't paying attention to you, get into those left clicks until people start paying attention to you. You'll put out a lot more DPS. So Zen, kind of a cheat in how we're covering him, because for him, it's mostly about remember he's a support and actually get your supportive abilities out there in your Harmony or Discord rather than going, oh, you need to frag harder. For the actual fragging harder, make sure you've got those left clicks in play and you're not over leaning on the right clicks. Okay, and lastly, that brings us to Brig. Brig exists. Rally is really powerful. I don't really feel a huge need to go into Brig. Oh, she's kind of a tough one. I hadn't really pre-thought about her. So I don't feel a ton of need to go into her because the truth is she doesn't get used a ton on the lower levels of the ladder, in some reasons because she really works great as an anti-dive hero, and the bottom portions of the ladder do not play dive heroes terribly well. They're not terribly dangerous when they play dive heroes, unless you're talking about Smurfs, things like that. But you know what? There's enough Smurfs. There are some people who are moving up with tracers, Genshis, things like that. So what do? Well, going, hey, we're going to pick her in the right situations. You're going to pick her when there's divers to deal with. That's going to be part of it, sure. And then going, hey, you know how to shut down those heroes. I don't really find people are massively struggling with that, though. I actually find what happens is sort of the opposite, where people play the Brigs too aggressively. They walk into fights with Brig. They go try to challenge brawls. They go try to brawl with Brig when she's not yet ready to win a brawl. Don't get me wrong. Brig makes a big difference in a brawl. If she's brawling, she's constantly proccing Inspire, which is helpful for people. If she has her ult, she's fantastic in that brawl, don't get me wrong, but I find people are too quick to go into the brawl in lower levels with her. They feel like they can't do anything. And again, she's going to be similar to Zen, where you do have to understand you're playing her as she is a support. You do have a little bit of this bodyguard thing going on. You do have a little bit of I'm going to enable my flankers, not my tanks, with my health packs. You're not going to heal more. You're probably actually going to heal less by throwing your repair packs at your support, at your squishies, your DPS, your flankers getting aggressive, than at your tanks. But that's going to do more good for your team by getting those repair packs out there. If you triple pack a Reinhardt at 50 HP and the Reinhardt dies, you don't get refunded your pack. She's also not terribly good. Like, yes, I'm going to heal my Reinhardt. So I'm going to heal my Reinhardt, 55 is it? Health per second, almost a double strength Harmony Orb for 2 seconds, so 110 HP. He cares, but he doesn't care that much. Your Genji cares way more about that. Your Echo cares way more about that. Your Tracer loves that. That almost doubles the amount that, gives them quite a bit more health that they get to play with, and it ticks up over 2 seconds. It's a pretty strong hot on them. It's a relatively, whatever. This is just a Mercy healing them for 2 seconds, and if you look at a Mercy healing a Reinhardt, A, not a fantastic use of Mercy, but B, Mercy has to spend more than 2 seconds healing up a Reinhardt. It's not a fantastic use there. So with her, get your packs on the right targets and bodyguard your support. Understand you're shutting down the flankers. Don't go get lost. Don't run forward and oops, my Zen got deleted because I got bored and went and brawled. That would be sort of the first thing that I'd look for there, because again, you got to go, hey, she's the support, and with her there, it's mostly put the packs in the right place is going to be the first thing. And then the second thing really is you want to go in with her once her going in is enough to win the brawl. So you actually have to think about her sort of how poke heroes think about the game, where an Orisa doesn't necessarily walk into the fight until she thinks she can win. And Ashe doesn't necessarily walk into the fight until they think they can win. Poke heroes don't really walk into the fight until they've softened up the opposing team enough to go in. And this is something that supports have to learn because they frequently don't really have to walk into fights. Moira always wants to walk into the fight to a degree. Most of these other heroes aren't really thinking about walking into fights, other than Lucio. Brig really has to understand, once we have enough of a lead that she's a difference maker, not just her damage, but her constantly proccing Inspire in there, her being able to do that, or hey, we have Rally, that sort of becomes the second thing here. Under her understanding, my team is, including me, enough ahead that if we go into Brawl now, we win, I want to go in and Brawl. And the reason she wants to do that is if she doesn't, she's not contributing enough in the poke phase, and that can flip. She might have had a window for her and her team to go in and win, but then she waited too long, and the other team's greater poke, because she doesn't have very good poke that she's contributing to the team, brings them ahead, and now it's too late sort of thing. So first thing, get your packs placed correctly to do maximum support, which is not on your tanks. Second thing, really going to be once you have a big enough lead to go in, but do not go in early. If you go in early, A, you'll just get swatted by a Reinhardt, and B, your supports will, oops, they got flanked because your Ana isn't walking in, that sort of thing. So yeah, those would be the two places I'd go with her. I know these last two are a little bit different than the previous five, but that's because of how people use them. They tend to, what people get wrong with these heroes, what's important for them to carry better is less important. Really, the biggest thing for carrying on this Brig Obviously, yes, win your duels with the flankers, but the biggest thing for actually taking over is getting that correct judgment, and that is hard to get of when you can walk in. That's especially hard to get in lower levels because your team isn't necessarily going to share your desire to walk in because your team doesn't understand the conversion. So that can be challenging. That is part of why I don't really recommend Brig strongly for one-tricking. You obviously can one-trick her, but I don't strongly recommend her for one-tricking because she really does need conditions to be right, and those conditions aren't super plentiful, especially in lower SRs where people aren't very good at flankers. Okay. No tips on carrying with experimental sim? This movement must go on temporal? Experimental sim. No, I don't think I'm going to talk about that one because I haven't spent any time with it. It wouldn't be fair of me to talk about that one because I haven't spent any time with experimental sim. Sorry. Okay, that's going to cover my presentation portion, but if you guys have questions, I'm absolutely happy to get into them. Throw those up in chat. We'll start scrolling back through those. If you're enjoying the content, please do drop a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. High ground is good on almost anyone. True. Brig is high ground artillery support. I mean, she's actually that like shield that you put in front of your ballista, so she's sort of the support to your high ground cannon that is Zenyatta. So yeah, that checks out. We'll take it. Brig is high ground artillery support. Okay, do tanks now? Not right now. I have a match in a Northeastern Collegiate match in just a few minutes here, which I will stream. One Mercy tip that makes the difference between a top 500 and GM Mercy. Top 500 isn't a rank. You can be a top 500 at 4,100, 4,200 early in the season when the seasons just happen, and then later in the season, you'll need to be higher. Top 500 isn't a real rank. GM is a rank. 4,400 is a rank. 4,200 is a rank. Top 500 isn't a rank. There isn't a difference between GM and top 500. That's not a thing. Yeah. If you want to know the difference between like a 4,400 and a 4,100 Mercy, I could get into that, but the reality is it's going to be a few things, but it's going to be small amounts of a few things, and it is going to differ a bit from person to person. I don't think I've uploaded any of my work with my... Have I done any? I mean, I'm pretty sure I've uploaded some GM Mercy Play reviews. I don't think I've uploaded anything in like the 43, 4,400 range. I think all of those are either people paying me to keep it private or it being Northeastern, which is generally kept private as well. Difference between a 4.4K and a 4K Mercy? Okay, so... you could get into quite a few things there. The reality is you are going to have some level of, yes, your 4.4K Mercy almost certainly is going to be doing a better job of ult tracking than your 4K Mercy. You're not going to have silent 4.4K Mercies. It's not going to happen. You're going to get better ult tracking, like more accurate ult tracking out of your 4.4K Mercy. You're also going to get your 4.4K Mercy is going to be much more aware of who the actual good players are, because when you're talking about 4.4K players, the lobbies, the number of players that they work with, they're only working with, a handful of other players in terms of on the ladder, and they're going to have a very good idea of where they can make a difference. If this is the best player in the lobby, I'm going to boost them. Oh, the better DPS player in the lobby of these two is this player. I'm going to pay a little more attention to them. Oh, this player is going to struggle in this matchup against this other player, and I see this other player coming for them. I'm going to show up and peel for them. That sort of thing. Like, a lot of that really is going to come down to them actually being aware of the players' habits, the players, how much they can and can't handle the matchup, and them going, I'm going to fix this bad matchup, and I'm going to empower this good player, which are two different things, and them figuring out which to do when. And a lot of that is going to be about knowing the players there. Okay. Do tanks now? We could do tanks, but we're not going to do those right now. Diva damage was cut 75%. Yeah, Diva damage feels bad. The experimental patch is... We did review the experimental patch. You can check that out. A couple video goes again on the channel. Of course, Temp tells more. Debate champ over here. People play Brig like Ryan, free kills. Right. If you go in too early, she's free kills. She absolutely is. You have to go in with her at a point where it's going to be enough. She adds a fair amount to your brawl strength, but if you go in before your team can win a brawl, she's just going to get destroyed. She does make a difference in her brawl, though. I mean, she has some damage. She doesn't have much range. She will have her Inspire going on, her team when they've closed in for the dive, closed in for the brawl, and that's powerful. But your team has to be in enough of a place that they can win the brawl, that the other team has either been softened up or that they were the stronger brawlers in the first place. You pick Brig versus enemy ball? Yep. Brig exists. Nice take, tell me more. We did get to more conjuncts. One big thing that started working for me really well in Diamond is to start flanking when my Harmony and Discord Orb are out there and just to be a little more of a threat to the enemy. Right. Zen has some really good stuff. Zen can be like, hey, there's a wall here. I'm right here. I put out my Harmony Orb. I put out my Discord Orb. I fire off some left clicks. And then I rotate over to here. And I can rotate charging a 5 orb during this rotation time, show up in a new spot, so I get that fresh angle advantage where, hey, people aren't looking at this angle, they're not defending against their angle, their cover isn't set for this angle. My orbs didn't come back until I was like here in my rotation, so then I fire off my fresh 5 orb from a fresh angle when it's most likely to get a pick. I got most of my orb uptime, and then after that 5 orb, I put my Discord and Harmony orb right back out there. Zen is one of those characters that is appropriately able to use rotation time because he can charge a 5 orb during that time. His Harmony orb and Discord orb stay out for 3 seconds even after he's broken line of sight. Good hero for that. Brig the evil demon. My favorite thing on Zen is when you Harmony and ally Discord their 1v1 target, but they still lose. I mean, at that point, they've lost a 2v1. I don't care if you're shooting somewhere completely different. If you Discord their target, Harmony them, and they still lose, they've lost a 2v1. And, I'm sure they feel bad. Ammon Bull says, yeah, I could make a post about how to carry by only shield butting and how non-shield tanks can't carry. That should piss Temporal off. That might get a video response for me. Then gets Transcendence for being offensive. Right, and that's one of the differences between Sound Barrier and Transcendence, and why Transcendence is kind of a better ult, because when you factor in their relative charge time, they're similar power levels. You might even say the power level of Sound Barrier is better, but ultimately, when you factor them in, the speed at which they're gotten into the power of the ult, Transcendence is quite a bit better of an ult there, because Zen gets it more quickly. Because Zen can fill it with his Harmony Orb and with his damage, and that helps quite a bit. Zen has a support function. yeah. Transcendence, that's what it is. No, Discord is an amazing support function. I want to make a post. Yeah, make me do the carrying on tank thing by doing a wrong post. There you go. Jim says, I've watched Unranked 2 GM Mercy only from Awkward ML7 and Skitsy, and they all struggled. Right. Mercy isn't that bad because of Blue Beam. Moira one trick is heck to carry on. No, I don't know about that. Mercy can be tricky if you don't heavily rely on comms or heavily rely on mechanics to just out-blaster people through the lower ranks. She can be a little tough to get through. The truth is, once she gets to about Diamond, it evens out because your DPS are usable enough. At lower ranks, you sort of have to adjust and go, am I going to boost my tanks instead? Because my tanks have reliable hits. Reinhammer is not hard to hit with. Winston, Tesla is not hard to hit with. Do you start damage boosting them? But they'll still really struggle to get the eliminations. And so you really have to start going, okay, well, what are we going to do here? That said, if you can find DPS staking angles, absolutely boost them. Just accept that your DPS aren't going to hit as many shots, but when they do hit shots, it's going to make a pretty big difference to have that Mercy damage boost. But also, your tanks aren't playing right either. Your Reinhardt is taking way too much damage. He's probably shield botting. Stop supporting him. He's shield body. Go ahead and go over there and support your Zarya instead, who's got an off angle. Or go support your Cassidy, who is walking up the flank and alone. And, well, if he doesn't win the duel, you're going to get eliminated too because you're stuck in a cave, but make him win the duel. You can do it. Moira isn't that rough. Moira really isn't that rough. She can do enough. She can get aggressive. You start playing her a little wrong if you're actually doing unranked to GM type stuff, just like it's easy to play Mercy wrong in unranked to GM, but you can go force your way into the opponent's backline and sort of be a bully over the fact that their aim isn't good enough to punish you. I don't recommend that for people that are trying to climb with her for real, but if you're actually trying to force your way through and you are a significant smurf and you actually know how to read how opponents are aiming and adjust your movement, so if you're actually like a 4.4K player, it's not that bad because she puts mental pressure on people. They hate the mental pressure of, oh shoot, I'm about to get 1v1'd by a Moira who's not even aiming at me type thing. And then she can do quite a bit. She can focus almost fully on reading where they're putting their crosshair and doing counter movement. And what that means is, again, so you're looking at something where someone's crosshair is like this and you're standing here as Moira. Yay, and you know their crosshairs on you and they are strafing in such a way that they're moving this way. Oh, that's cool, you're moving this way, let me move this way. Whoa, I'm now moving at double speed across your screen. That's pretty hard to keep up with. You can do it, but it's pretty hard to keep up with. Okay, you've sort of adjusted. Okay, let me move back the other way. I see your crosshairs getting near me type thing. Or, oh, you've switched directions. Okay, let me switch directions so I'm staying at this double speed type thing rather than creating a situation where we're both moving in the same direction. It's equivalent to me not moving, that sort of thing. So, you know, there's a little bit of this where she has more brain power to devote to doing that sort of thing. Again, because she doesn't really have to work very hard to aim. Again, that's not really what I'd recommend doing. That is way too advanced of a skill for most players to really be working on for most of the ladder, but that's how you actually abuse the other team and tilt them hard when, oh, it's a DPS Moira, and the DPS Moira is kicking your butt. Because your supports are dead, your DPS are dead, she doesn't care that she can't kill your tanks. Okay. Okay, let's take a look. Valk is the same as trance if I'm a scientist? No, don't do that. Mercy probably feels the most frustrating to get individual support carry potential. Yeah, because Mercy, the most of any hero in the game, acts through other people. That's what she does. Valk 6Ks. Valk pull out the pistol, gets 6Ks. Okay. Widow destroys Narissa. Arista makes Widow pretty unhappy. Like, Arista makes Widow pretty darn unhappy. Double shield is a pretty common swap for teams when snipers are bothering them. Anything else here? Temporal is bad at Overwatch. I'm better than him. Okay, Adam. Okay. What if your other support is Brig, Lucio, Mercy? What if your other support is Brig, Lucio, Mercy? What about... I don't know what that's in reference to, Amen. I don't know which hero I was on at that time. Sorry. Simitic says, I climbed as Zen. Is discording the most aggressive enemy player? Harmonor with the most aggressive ally? Question mark, massive value. Yeah, that's how it works. If you put discord on the most aggressive enemy, it'll generally check them. It'll generally force them back into a decent, you know, back into less aggressive position where they will do less damage. And if you harmony or your most aggressive ally, well, the most aggressive ally is the one likely to do the most damage. So yeah, you want to support them. You want to allow them to stay there. You have fade jump now? Hop up to that off-angling Hanzo and get him? Yeah, send your orb and then send yourself. Yeah. Watching from the beginning, but anxious to see and not being able to play off support will let me climb. That's okay. It's okay. You can climb with any of these. I listed how to climb on any of these. My answers for Zen and Brig are a little different than the other 5, but I absolutely listed how to do it. Oh, and then we've got Malcolm saying, there's some weird fad for plat and below healers to stick their heel stick up the tank's butt and don't look around to help DPS duels and sometimes don't even look at their DPS. Why? It's because you shouldn't be seeing much of that in plat, though I'm sure you do see some of it, but it's because the DPS, and I sort of covered this earlier, aren't terribly reliable. When they're, you know, if they were, for example, previously, the support was previously in bronze or silver, those DPS weren't hitting very many shots, and the tanks are somewhat reliably hitting shots. Winston's Tesla, Reinhardt's Hammer, those aren't terribly hard to hit with, and they actually, by healing their their tanks are getting more consistent value. By supporting their tanks, they're getting more consistent value. Now, they're not always getting finishes, and it's a bit of a tricky thing because both supports are healing both tanks, and so the tanks don't really have enough damage to eliminate each other necessarily without the DPS help, so it gets a little messy. But the low metal ranks trained the supports wrong effectively, and they need to break out of what sort of worked for them. Now, could they have played it better and still been like, okay, I'll heal my tank, but I'll swap over to the aggressive Hanzo, I'll swap over to the Ashe when she has TNT, that sort of thing, I'll take the offensive shot at their Pharah to keep them in check? Yes, that's what they should have done, but they were able to succeed in silver by putting a lot of resource into their more consistent tank damage as opposed to into their soldier who, missed half of his clip sort of thing. So that's unfortunately what's happening, and they need to adjust and get better and find a better way to play the game, especially now in Plat, for example, where their DPS can hit shots. Because their DPS are much more reliable for finishing off targets than tanks. Okay. Today is the day that Temporal spends 5 nights at his favorite pizza place. Ooh, tonight is probably not the night. I think I need to do collegiate power rankings because the Activision tournament is starting shortly, so I'll need to head over and do my power rankings for that. It's starting this weekend, so I'll probably put out some power rankings tonight. I like Reacher. Interesting take on Mercy Voice Moira carry. Glad you enjoyed it. Blue's best way of carrying on support in low gold is pick Moira first to prevent Moira from playing Moira. I mean, you can carry on Moira. Moira in lower ranked games has plenty of ability to be a difference maker. I wouldn't worry about that. Now, don't get me wrong, BAP is just better than Moira. If you can instead play BAP, if you have even average aim, BAP is just better. But Moira, especially if you get that coalescence early, put those off-angling DPS out of position, force them back, she can make differences. Absolutely. If you went, hey, your support pool is going to be these 3 heroes because your aim sucks, for example, you can still climb with this support pool. I wouldn't want to climb with this support pool of just Brig because she's too specialized. You could go Brig Mercy, but I don't love a Brig Mercy support pool because then you're in situations of there's going to be so many Mercy one tricks that you're trying to play around, and Mercy Brig isn't an amazing combination. And then you could add Lucio, but Lucio actually takes a fair amount of technical skill and also is bad when you have all those Mercy picks. And so really you'd like to go like this, but if you go, no, my aim sucks, I don't want to make my aim better, you could go like this, and this would be fine until Diamond. Okay, I've got to wrap up here. This epic pen work is particularly good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm glad you're enjoying it, James. DPS Moira in my game tries to damage something with armor and gets herself eliminated. Damaging stuff with armor is just to get resource back. You should be spamming that right click, just trying to get resource back. It's not a great target for her. The only character in the game you can't headshot me button, right. The Widow does not particularly like Orissa's. The shield, and then Orissa puts any pressure on Widow, or if Orissa's caught without the shield, Fortify turns off headshots, like, no. I suppose Zarya can self-bubble, and Ball is really the answer to Widow, but hey. People say if you want to climb, play Zen. I was asking about that advice because Zen doesn't seem to fit into every comp, like Ryan comps. BAP is probably the most universal climb hero right now. Zen is ultimately, I would still say, a stronger hero, but BAP is until, everyone's really good at Ball and Tracer, so GM, BAP is, just go with BAP. BAP isn't great at supporting dive heroes, but you're not going to get pure dive comps for most of ladder. Also, with Ana especially, the tanks can be taking so much damage that they die if you don't use every shot on them. So the thing about Ana is, if you're finding that you're in situations too often where your tanks are going to die if you don't use every shot to heal them, you needed to do more damage before they got into that situation. Again, proactive healing is called damage. Doing damage to the Pharah to not let her rain heck down on your team causes you to not fall behind so much that you need to constantly heal. Okay. I think the idea of climb with Zen is that you're able to make less healing work by eliminating the enemies before, right? Can I comment on how Ryan should stay on high ground to better stage charges from? He should not. He should not. He's not staying up there to get better charges. He's staying up there until he's confident his team will win the brawl phase. Climb with Zen is just because he scales with aim so well. And I'd say climb with BAP is the more universal one for the moment. Okay, I gotta go. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have, please drop a like, consider subscribing. If you'd like to see more like this, go ahead and join the Discord in the description below, and you can react to become a watcher, get pings when we go live and stuff. I'll see you guys next time.